What is going on, everyone? My name is Northy, and tonight I have got a bit of a late, I guess, but you can't blame me too much. University's got me all stumbled up, and that's okay because it's university. But today we are doing a round 8 team coach review. Really keen to get into this one as per usual. Unfortunately, though, the streak has ended. Before we get into the meat of it all, though, we are going to quickly mention, if you haven't already, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Everything is always very, very much appreciated, and I always really like to take the time out to make sure that you guys understand that, because sometimes it feels like a normal YouTuber thing, but I really do appreciate it. The love on the channel has been so inspiring as of late, and it's gotten me keen to keep going, so thank you again for that. But without further ado, we're going to get into our team coach review. So here we are on the screen. Unfortunately, nothing has popped up yet, but there's some good things and some bad things that we've got to look at this week. First off, we're going to start with the bad, because the bad is pretty bad, and that is actually star powers. We're not going to go with tips first. Star powers. This is what we're looking at for this week. Some good and bad here and there. The ones that we thought would do usually well just didn't do well this week. Sheasel, who's been doing 120 plus nearly every week, got moved around the field and only dropped the 89. Really upsetting. And look at the amount of 100s on the board. There were so many. Dunkley with 151, Parrish 147, Brayshaw 125. Like, man, there are a lot of good people to pick from, and the one that I thought was the safest was the worst. So really tough there. And we got a midfield ball, most likely our most positive one, but you can see like people like Jack Sinclair, Trelaw did well. We have ourselves Sarong, who finally had himself that bounce back game he needed. We got Lockie Neal, we have Rory Laird. It's just like overall some 100s that like really made this Zach Merritt game feel not as good as it was last week. But then we go to Lockie Whitfield, who absolutely let us down this week. Hayden Young was definitely the pick. We got Stephen May in there as well, who had over 100. But tell you what wasn't the pick, a Lockie Whitfield 48-point performance. That's a tough one. That's a very tough one. But we did end up picking the right next generation player with 119. There we go. We're 1 for 4 because we are definitely not 2 for 5. Kane Zorko, what the hell is this? You heard me say like all that smack talk about how I'm lucky I didn't pick him after how he performed last week, and then he went and did this. 184 is a ridiculous stat line. 40 possessions, 16 marks. What is this? I cannot believe how good this game was for basically everyone on Brisbane. If you had Brisbane players, you were living good. I feel like you could basically put in the entire Brisbane team and you would have gotten a prize card this week. It was kind of nuts. So yeah, Dane Zorko, crazy game from him. And that overall saw us get 183. We were nowhere near it. We were under 500, less than 100 per person. That's not what you want to see at all. 458 is not a good score, just plain and simple. We're still second, which means that a lot of other people had poor weeks, and I can kind of gather that from the names. And you can see the highest scoring fantasy point person from this week is someone who is literally just a little under 2,000 points behind me. So it was a very random week, meaning we are keeping a number 2 position, which is good. I can live with it a bit easier, knowing that it was a bit of a random week. Everyone kind of like fell off in that sense, and no one who was top of the top really had that good of a week. So it goes to show that random and luck can sometimes still play a factor, but this is probably where it gets a little worse. We have a check here. Rosie, who is subbed out with injury in a week where we had that many good 100-point players like Dunkley, Brayshaw, Dacos, and Oliver, and Bontempelli. If we put all of them in, they would have done better than our double points player. Disappointing to say the least. And not only that, I need to find a mighty card now. I need to find a double points mighty, or I'm going to have to go with a George Wardlaw double points, because I think that's the only other one that I can do. And even Tom Green, who I recently picked up for midfield bull, he's coming off of a bit of an injury, so that's going to be tough. But you can see, Sarong was probably our best one. I say probably, definitely. Double points, 141. Living good. I love that. I'm absolutely happy for that. But obviously, we saw Lockie Whitfield before. 48 double points is not good. And the worst part is we really didn't have a choice with him. We need Lockie Whitfield to do well every week, or it's going to be a rough one. That's really all it comes down to for Lockie Whitfield. But then we saw Nick Martin and Max Gorn before. Nick had a very good performance, and Max had an alright performance, but compared to Zorko, not nearly as good. So yeah, unfortunately, Ultra, although we did do better technically here, you can see we had ourselves a rank 96, so just inside the top 100, which is alright, but you can see players like this, who gained 300 points on me this week, has surpassed me. 7,207 now for that guy. And surprisingly, we're still ranked 3 which means I've passed someone as he's passed me. So I'm not sure what to kind of think of it, but sitting at third is strangely comfortable, and it keeps me high hopes, I guess. So yeah, that was Star Powers this week. Wasn't anything too crazy, but I'm still feeling good. At least I haven't completely fallen off the map. And I think I'm at a point now where it doesn't really matter how poorly I may perform in a week. I'm still going to keep my high season ranking. I just need to keep my top team stuff, and we'll go through that in a sec. But I'm going to go through the tips first and have a look, because I'm not sure if it's updated. Yes, it has been. And you can see 5 out of 9. We had 8 out of 9 the week before, but now we're kind of back to reality. So some obvious ones here and there. We had Freo taking on Richmond and getting that one. St Kilda beating North. One that I thought was a bit more obvious was the Dogs beating Hawthorn, but I swear the Dogs do this every year. There is always a game where they perform absolutely horrifically, and yeah, this was another one. Geelong being beaten by Melbourne was surprising, but happy to see, because now there are no undefeated teams left for the year, so no one can feel too cocky or too inevitable, I think is the word I'm looking for. But West Coast nearly picking off Essendon. I was thinking maybe this would be tough, and it was. Essendon took this game by a goal. My goodness, what a game. But yeah, this Brisbane Gold Coast game was something I've never seen before in terms of unknowing dominance. It felt like Brisbane were just so good, and yet it really doesn't show it all too much on the scoreboard. I mean, it was a solid 34-point win, don't get me wrong, but this didn't really scream domination. It really doesn't. But we go to Sydney, and GWS Sydney takes the Battle of the Bridge in a game that I thought would be a little more competitive. But yeah, the Giants ended up getting beaten by 5 goals. And Port with by far one of the most disappointing games I've seen all season, man. 5 goals 18 is something that is going to go down in the history books for inaccuracy. And Adelaide, with basically no form all year, ends up pumping them. I said it in the preview, man. If you are putting tips on this game, throw out anything you thought of before, because it is a clean slate between these two. These two always have a great and unsuspecting battle. It's very strange, but Carlton v Collingwood. Carlton nearly managed to make it double trouble for the Pies and 2 draws in 2 weeks. But Nick Dacos, I mean, I think that's his game of the year so far. So far, at least. He's been kind of quiet, and that game he absolutely blew up. Definitely going to get himself 3 Brownlow votes if he is still in the running for that. But we'll see how it goes, man. That was very good to watch. It was just a great game, and I streamed it one. It was very, very fun. So let's go over to our top team now. We're going to look at that and have a look, because there's a few things I want to kind of bring up. So as I mentioned the other day, or before, Harry Sheezel, I mentioned it before, not the other day, Harry Sheezel had himself a bit of a poor game for his standards. 24 disposals and 6 marks with 1%. Isn't really anything too bad, but after averaging 121 for the season, that is a crazy drop-off. A very, very big drop-off. And so I'm hopeful that this is the only time that happens for Sheezel. And so I'm going to keep him in, see whether they switch him up. And I'm thinking maybe they will, because of the fact that North probably played better than they have before. Okay, at least compared to anyone else. And yes, they still lost by a good 38 points. But that was definitely more of a fight that we've seen. At least as a North fan myself, I've seen more fight in that game against St Kilda than I've seen anywhere else. And Sheezel not playing that back safety, where he sure grabs a lot of possessions, but what's he doing to impact the game? He at least gets a bit more involved with bringing the ball up, so hopefully we can see a bit more. But Zach Merritt was our midfielder, and although he did pretty well, look at the top, man. 151, 147, 141, 137, 125, 122, 121. Not to mention the Martin, the Moore, the Treloar. This is a pretty crazy week for midfielders. Loads of 100-point performers. It is a really surprising one. And I'm not really mad at Merritt's performance. It's not like he played poorly, but man, so many good ones. And then we moved to Ruck. I thought Max would be really good, but I think due to a slow start, he ended up ruining himself. He had himself 20 hit-outs, and I didn't think it'd be too bad him being put as the ruckman against Geelong, but clearly it wasn't the best of ideas. And you see Grundy, who once again has himself a standout performance. He has had some quietly dominant performances, like the one against Max Gawn at the start of the year. That was a very, very impressive one. And then Rowan Marshall has finally come back to play. Kind of expected though against North Melbourne. Speaking of, Tristan Sherry has his occasional game where all of a sudden he bursts out for something like this. 40 hit-outs, 19 disposals, just getting himself all over the ball. I'm kind of surprised by it, but hey, I'm glad at least North Melbourne players are doing well. Timmy English also having a bit of an up and down year. Good to see him have himself a good game too. But yep, Max Gorm, not the greatest pick. And then Heaney has himself another less than 100 point game, but he still wins it because he's in the forward line. He is a forward line player, and you can see, yeah, he managed to top the week, which is actually quite strange. I did not expect it. So, yeah, at least we hit on one, but we look at our top 4 rankings, not in the top 100, but still number 1. We're gonna take it. We are absolutely gonna take that. Didn't manage to average 100 per player, but I am, of course, happy as long as we still have that rank 1. As long as we're getting into that top 50, though, I want to see some continued over 400 performances, because if I'm not seeing it, then we're gonna have problems start showing up, and I don't want to lose this number 1, man. It's so cool. I really want that to keep rising. So, looking at top 18 now. Obviously, we have the same ones from top 4, but let's look at the forwards and backs that we've also got, as well as the midfielders. Good to see things like Josh Dunkley. We picked him up, 151. Had himself an amazing game. Same with Caleb Sarong. I'm glad I kept them both in because I had thoughts about taking both of them out. And so the fact they both did well, so good to see. And Isaiah, 104, not at all bad. It would have been nice to pick up someone else for sure, but I couldn't have expected the likes of Neil McCluggage and Dunkley all to be really good. Like, that was such a confusing game, that Brisbane versus Gold Coast game, and unfortunately I was on the wrong side because I picked Noah Anderson. He had 98, which again, it's not terrible, but it's not Brisbane 157 type good, 184 type good like Dane Zorka. We go to the forward line. You can see here again, like we mentioned, the no 100 point players. So you look, Langford had a good game compared to how the rest of the round went. Brian Myers did pretty well. He's remaining consistent, even though he had a poor performance. Like, he is actually up there in terms of performance compared to the rest. Larky, it's good to see him doing well. Mackay, there's a reason I'm picking him now. He's doing stuff like that. And Isaac Heaney did top the round with a surprisingly poor performance for his standards. And it was just Jeremy Cameron. Like, 15 disposals and 7 marks sounds like it should be good, but no goals does not help from a forward. And so maybe that's a reason why they couldn't come away with a win. And then the back line here, a few good picks. Like, we had Hayden Young, who was good. Bailey Dale, who wasn't the best this week, but still 105. I'm gonna take it. And in a poor performance, that's good to see. The fact I've taken out Luke Ryan the week he does this shows how unlucky it feels I am sometimes. Like, he has been playing so poor as of late. I took him out, he dropped 161. I do not know what to think. Then we have Andrew McGrath, 78. I think I had an inkling he'd have a game like this, so a little disappointing. And then probably the most disappointing of all is Wietering, who's had some good games as of late and dropped 49. Very upsetting for sure. I am going to keep him in. I'm going to see how he goes again. Whitfield, we talked about him before. I'm just going to see how they go. I don't know how much I'm going to change the lineup, because obviously if you change it up too much, you end up robbing yourself of a good performance another week. But Shea Bolton, unfortunately, he's back to his usual standards when I have him in my team of dropping 40-point performances. So because of that, I didn't manage to get a prize card. I was damn close though, 48 for a round that felt that disappointing. I think the forward line being as poor as it was this week kind of affected how everyone thought they were going to do. Like, 1641 is not bad. Having Dunkley and Sarong also helps, but I'm just thinking of the changes I could have made. Like, I'm looking at number 20, who's about 60 points off. Imagine if I had have put Rowan Marshall in against North Melbourne. That could have added another 25 points. If we had kept Luke Ryan, that would have done it. Like, it's so annoying, the fact that a change that I should have made ages ago is now coming to bite me on the bum because I didn't make it earlier. Or I didn't make it later. I don't know, man. It's tough to see. We'll have to rearrange, but no prize cards this week, unfortunately. But anyways, that is it for the week. Yeah, unfortunately, the streak has come to an end, but I am nonetheless happy that I'm still keeping my number 1 spot for top 4. Need to keep that alive as best as I possibly can. So I can only thank you all so much for tuning into this one, and I hope that you guys had a bit more success than I did, because, yeah, just a bit of a tough one this week, unfortunately. But if you enjoyed the video and want to see more like it, be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, become a member if you really enjoy the content here, and I can only thank you all again, like I mentioned at the start, for all the supporters of late. Hope you guys can stick with me and we'll keep this train rolling. So thank you all very, very much, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.